Hey guys, it's Caitlin. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm actually filming like a proper video in front of my bookshelves. Who would have guessed that this would be the next video that I film? Because I haven't done one of these in a very long time. So today I am filming a favourites of 2020. So I do have slightly more than 10. I know that some people just like to keep it to that, but we don't have that much more than 10, so we just kind of go over all of them. Because there are more than 10 books, I'm not going to run through the blurbs for each of these books, but I will link them all in the down box below if you want to check them out for yourselves, have a bit of a look at the blurb, see if you think you'll be into it. All of these books I did rate 5 stars, that's why they're on my favourites list, so clearly I would highly recommend any of them. But yeah, let's get into it. Also, before we start this video, I just want to say that these aren't in like an order of my favorites. It's just the order in which I read them this year. So there's no like this is number 10 working up to number 1 or the other way around. It's just like I read this at the beginning of the year and I read this at the end of the year. So that's kind of all that's happening. To start things off, our first favorite of... Hello? Danny jump. Good girl. Back to the video. So my first favourite of 2020 was House of Earth and Blood, or Crescent City, by Sarah J Maas. This was one of the first books that I read this year. Absolutely loved it. She is a bit chunky. I must say I did agree with a lot of people when they said that the first half could be a little bit slow because it was a lot of world building, but 100% worth it to get to the end. It is just... it's just... There are no words to describe this, there's just like noises and facial expressions. But pretty much such a slow burn romance going on in here. We know that Sarah J Maas is an absolute queen when it comes to fae romances. Do I need to say more? The second book is one that I do not own. I borrowed it from my library, but it is Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. This is book 2 in the Fixer Up trilogy, I think it is. I know the third book came out last month, so very excited to get my hands on that. Let me just say though that I don't know what it is about Tessa Bailey's writing, but it is absolutely beautiful. Both of the books in this series have made me cry so far. Needless to say, I very much enjoyed it. Would recommend both of these books. You don't have to read them as like a series in order. You can just read them as a standalone, but if you do read book 2 first, it will spoil you for what happens in book 1. My third favourite of 2020 was The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. So I know that this was published several years ago, but I didn't actually get around to reading it until this year, and I have a feeling that my reason for liking it so much is actually a load of crap. So I haven't watched many other people's reviews of this book, but I don't know if there's actually supposed to be a plot twist in it or if you're supposed to guess whose point of view is whose, but I had it completely the wrong way around, and so I thought it was like major plot twist when we got to the end of the book. Absolutely loved it. I may or may not have I don't know if there's meant to be a love triangle, but I made a love triangle throughout the whole bloody trilogy, so really enjoyed this book, 100%, could not put it down. This next one, I wasn't sure if I should add it to my favourites list because it is a reread, but we're gonna go with it anyway, and that is Beautiful Player by Christina Lauren. Absolutely love this book. I have read it a number of times now and I've loved it every single time. So if you have read some of the other books or even just the first one, this follows Will and Ziggy, and it's adorable. I absolutely love it, and I just this is the one book in this series that I find myself gravitating towards whenever I want to read something by Christina Lauren. If you are looking to try some Christina Lauren, this is the third book in the series. I think I may have said that already. So if you do want to read it, you can read it as a standalone. I 100% did not read this series in the order that it was published, but I find going back and reading it from start to finish, it does make a lot more sense if you start at book 1. So, one of the first, the first male romance book that I read this year was Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. Absolutely loved this book. Pretty much some of the tropes in this book, you've got athletes, there's kind of an awakened sexuality trope going on, friends to lovers, It's, you know, you've got it all. What more do you want? It's just so good. I haven't actually read book 2 in this duology type thing, just because I am scared that I'm not going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed book 1, and I know that sometimes with sequels, like, they can just not go where you want them to, you know? And then the first one doesn't seem as special, and I don't really want to ruin that. So if anyone's read book 2 and absolutely adored it, please let me know, because I'm kind of terrified to read it. My next book on this favourites list is actually the final book in a series. So it's book 6, and that is Final Play by Eden Finley. So this is the final book in the Fake Boyfriends series. So if you couldn't guess by the title of that series, almost all of these books do have the fake boyfriend trope. Some of them are friends to lovers, others are strangers to lovers. You know, some of them are even awakened sexuality books. So you've got so many tropes going on here. I adored all of them. The first 5 books focus on different couples who are all friends, so the stories kind of, you know, are interwoven. I forget how many years after book 1 takes place, but because there are so many stories within this series, I think it might even be like over a decade after book 1, which is absolutely insane to think about, because you're like, holy crap. I binged this in like 3 days and you're telling me we've gone through 10 years? Mental breakdown. Next is probably, I know that this is a favourites list, but this is definitely like, if I were to rank them, this would be up near the top. And it's Without You by Marley Valentine. I think the thing that stumped me so much before actually deciding to delve into this book was that the blurb does touch a bit heavily on the fact that there is a lot of grief in this book, kind of going on about the death of one of our main character's brothers, and how the other main character was that dead brother's boyfriend. And so it's just kind of, the blurb sounded a little bit of a mess, and that was kind of what threw me off, because I'm like, I don't really know if I want to read something that focuses on death. But like, let me just tell you, it doesn't. It's not about death. Death is definitely a factor in this book. It's a beautiful book. I absolutely adored it, and would 100% recommend you jump on it. I've also just remembered that a majority of these like male books that I'm talking about, I did actually go through the blurbs of all of them in my isolation book haul, which I published maybe a month or so ago. So if you do want to kind of hear a little bit about the blurb, then I would recommend going to watch that video, because I talk about them all in a lot greater detail than I'm doing in this video, and I'm also conveying it a lot clearer than I am in this video. Alright, next on this list we have a trilogy, and it's, let me just say, I have read this whole trilogy, so 3 books, 4 times since the beginning of the year. And it's not even since the beginning, like, when did I read this first? I first discovered these books in May, and my final reread of them was like 2 weeks ago. So I have read them several times. If that doesn't tell you that I'm obsessed, I don't know what does. But that is the Elite trilogy by Brooke Blaine and Ella Frank. These are absolutely badass characters. The writing is absolutely hilarious. The romance is absolutely beautiful. I'm obsessed with Panther and Solo's story. I really want more. And just to make this Christmas better, these 2 authors actually came out with another like little novella. I think it's called Jingle Bell Rock, which actually features like stories from all of the characters that they've written in their books. Next on this favourites list is Heidi's Guide to 4-Letter Words by Andy Arndt and Tara Sivek. I put off reading this book for such a long time, and then I saw that it was on sale on Amazon for 99 cents, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Absolutely hilarious. Heidi is one of my favourite main characters ever. Her family is amazing and also hilarious. Like, these authors just nailed these characters' personalities. And I was a bit worried that the ending was going to be one of those, like, something goes wrong and then they split and then they gotta fix it. But it was such a feel-good romance. I would 100% recommend that you pick up this book if you haven't already done it. If you have, maybe give it a reread. The next book on this list is actually the second book in a trilogy, and that is Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. It took me so long to get around to reading this book, just because I had one of my friends tell me that it wasn't anywhere near as good as the first one, and so I was kind of like, ooh, maybe not then. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna bite the bullet, I'm gonna read book 2, and I'm so happy that I did, and I can't wait for book 3. Next we have another duology by Brooke Blaine, so this is the Unforgettable Duet. So book 1 is Forget Me Not, and then book 2 is Remember Me When. Absolutely love this book. I bawled my eyes out in both books. I said, I'm pretty sure I said in my other video, that this is a book that will like break your heart, put it back together again, and then break it again. And then kind of put it back together again. I don't know if it's a trope. I just have a bookshelf on Goodreads that's like where the protagonist gets severely injured. So, you know, I popped it under that one. I would also say it definitely focuses on trauma as well as a second chance romance. That's probably more towards book 2. I'm kind of craving a reread now, so I think once I finish this, I'm gonna go start reading that. Alright, second last book that I've got on this list is Headlines by Ella Frank. So this is actually book 3 in the Primetime trilogy, and I kind of forgot that I added it to my favorites list. Whoopsies. I absolutely adored this trilogy while I was reading it. I did make the mistake of not checking that all of the books were released before I sat down to binge it, so I like binged book 1 and 2, finished them in 2 days, and then realized I had to wait like a month for book 3 to come out. This book gave me such high expectations, and it also has a really good makeup scene. I find that I have a shelf on my Goodreads page that is just labeled good makeup scene, and because I'm a sucker for them, like I absolutely love it. Like, yeah, I love feel-good romances, but you know, like when characters kind of, they do that whole angsty split up type thing and then they come back together, sometimes it's just like a, okay, very quick reconciliation, and then other times, you know, I don't know what it is, but there are some books that just have like that perfect makeup scene that just hits you right in the feels, and this was one of those books for me. Absolutely loved it. Okay, the final book on this list is Of Sunlight and Stardust by Christina Lee and Riley Hart. I filmed an entire video about this book, so if you have a bit of a flick back through, I think it's called just like You Need to Read This Book. It was probably the most unique book that I have read in such a long time. It's just, the way that it was written was absolutely beautiful, and I just, I'm in love with it. Like, I'm absolutely obsessed. I don't even know how to describe it at this point. I feel like the best way to say it is that it's one of those stories that's kind of interwoven with the past, but at the same time, like, it's written in a way that you can guess certain things, but then at the same time you get to the end and you're like, how the hell did I miss all of these other things? And it's just, it's so good. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, maybe got some new reading ideas out of it. So please let me know down below if any of these sound really interesting to you, if you think you might pick them up, or if you have read them already. I want to know your thoughts. So please go ahead, let me know, and I will see you guys next week, hopefully, with another video.